And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to another edition of Black Chat Radio. I am your host, Joe Jimmy. Thank you for tuning in. We are here in the beautiful month of May. As always, we are found exclusively on the Black Independent Media channel within the Roku network. And we want to thank you all for tuning in. Anyway, folks, this week's show, we wanted to talk about Africa. And we wanted to look at the African continent and ask some very important questions. And actually, the show really does not revolve just around Africa. I mean, we're talking about a worldwide perspective. Okay, but Africa will be at the forefront because therein lies, I think, so many discussions that need to be taking place. And this is just one of them that we'll be having on today's show. But anyway, folks, what I did want to talk about today, let's talk about Africa from an economic view and how it relates and affects black people or people of black African descent around the world. Okay, because a lot of people have talked about this and they've really they've wanted to stay politically correct. They didn't want to say or make the tough comments or ask the tough questions and make sure that nobody's feelings are hurt and that everybody was smiling after the discussion was over with. As you all know, here on Black Chat Radio, we don't do that. If topics that need or issues and opinions and thoughts that need to be voiced, however challenging they may be, we will hit them head on. Okay, and in talking about Africa, we look at several of these African countries: Malawi, Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Niger, Congo. Most of these countries, as we all know, most of the people, they have, I think it's pretty consistent, where you have, 85–90% poverty rate, 85–90% unemployment. You have, very poor healthcare, almost non-existent healthcare. On the flip side, strangely enough, these countries are resource rich. They are full of natural resources. I'm sure the colonial white countries and organizations already know that. France, Germany, Portugal, Spain. I could go on and on. Pretty much all of Europe. They already know that. But we look at Africa, folks, and we look at the suffering that goes on there, the poverty that goes on there, and we ask ourselves, why is this so? Why is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world so dysfunctional? Why are black African countries so dysfunctional? I guess, yeah, that's the title, the subject matter of today's show. Why are black African countries so dysfunctional, and how does that affect people of black African descent worldwide? Okay, I personally believe that Africa should be a powerhouse. It should be one of the richest countries in the world. You have rare metals and rare precious metals and raw minerals that can be found nowhere else in the world in Africa, in these black African countries. Okay? You have a situation where people, for example, Nigeria has oil reserves, what they say now are comparable to Saudi Arabia. And we look at the contrast of Saudi Arabia and Nigeria. Saudi Arabia is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They have, suffice it to say, they have some issues with women rights and things like that. Social problems that makes it a little makes Saudi Arabia rough around the edges. For lack of a better term. But Saudi Arabia, in large part, takes care of its citizens, has excellent infrastructure. They have running water, they have facilities, They have electricity, consistent electricity, running water. They have the ability to take care of their citizens. They have health care, running water, electricity, utilities, police. They take care of themselves. They are not, they are not one of these basket cases you have in Africa, begging for public assistance. Having to have NGOs, NGO meaning non-governmental organizations, foreign countries, etc., having to come in and provide you with basic necessities. Okay. But anyway, Nigeria and Saudi Arabia having comparable oil reserves, but at the same time, these countries are such a stark contrast to the quality of life in both of them. Nigeria, on the other hand, you have massive corruption, and this is pretty much all African countries. One of my best friends is from Africa. He's from Zimbabwe, and he's somewhat affiliated with the ruling party, the Mugabe government. But he made it very plain and simple to me that there is no black African country not run by corruption. Okay? And Nigeria is a shining example of that. Nigeria is saddled with corruption. It's been that way for a very long time. We have the situation where oil companies, foreign oil companies, Shell Oil, some of the European, French oil companies, Portuguese companies, they have went in and dumped tons of petrochemical wastes in the Niger Delta. They can't even drink the water there. I can't even imagine, where does Nigeria, or will Nigeria get their clean drinking water from? Because the leaders in Nigeria, I think the president right now, his name is Goodluck Jonathan. But Mr. Jonathan has allowed basically foreign countries and foreign entities to literally dump whatever they want to. They have no respect for the environment there. These foreign companies or the black African governments that rule Nigeria, they have no respect for the people. They have no respect for the land or the water. They've allowed, like I said, corporations to come in, these oil companies, and literally you have oil spills in certain parts of Nigeria that have been there for 20, 25 years, have never been cleaned up. Okay? They've never been cleaned up. Oil spills are everywhere. It's filthy. They've dumped the Niger Delta. That water is black. Okay? That water is black. It is no longer drinkable. I certainly hope they're not drinking that water, because I'm sure the cancer rates, if they haven't already exploded, they will be. Cancer rates, gastrointestinal issues. I mean, the country is in as bad a shape as can be. And the real problem is that people try to talk Nigeria up as if it's some kind of beacon of African success. That is not the case, folks. That is absolutely not the case. This is my direct experience. This is people who have lived there. No. Nigeria is at a place where they should be a powerhouse of the world. They should be along the lines of Saudi Arabia. They should be along the lines of Japan or what have you. And folks, that's another. And I bring up Japan, just a very interesting point that I want to make. Okay, Japan doesn't even have a fifth of the resources that Nigeria has, or many of these black African countries do. Ghana, Malawi, etc. They don't have a fifth of the resources these countries have, but yet Japan is one of the. It's almost a third. I think it's the second or third largest economy in the world. Okay, and I ask you, how on earth is an island country? Japan, I believe, is no bigger than California in the United States. How on earth is an island able to be so widely successful and have such reach around the world, economic reach around the world. They don't even have, like I said, nowhere near what Nigeria has in mineral wealth and resources, oil, etc. How is Japan able to do that? How is Saudi Arabia able to do that? They have similar resources in Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria has more land to grow food on than Saudi Arabia does. But Saudi Arabia, there's no comparison in the quality of life that you get out of the two countries. You know. But why is Nigeria in such a backwater? Why is that, folks? I mean, Japan, Saudi Arabia, all these other countries. Folks, I say to you, and this is the host, this is my opinion, that it has everything to do around the people. Okay? The people of Nigeria, the leaders of Nigeria, and it is a real shame because you look at it from a wide-angle view. This is, this kind of dysfunctionalism, this widespread dysfunctionalism is not just contained to Nigeria. It's pretty much all of the black African countries in Africa. And it is not constrained to the black countries in Africa. It also extends to Haiti and Jamaica here in the Western Hemisphere. Not to get off topic, but Haiti, as we all know, was the victim of brutal dictatorships. The gentleman, he actually is living in New York now. I believe he was recently sent to prison over the mortgage scandal. But anyway, we have Papa Doc Duvalier. And I'm sorry, he's not the one who's in prison, but I mean Papa Doc, Baby Doc, was recently readmitted into Haiti, and he claimed that he was there to help Haiti's poor and help them, out of the whole earthquake tsunami, or rather, I'm sorry, not tsunami, but earthquake tragedy. That man, Baby Doc Duvalier, I mean, he stole several $1 million. He robbed Haiti blind. That man was in charge of death squads that murdered several thousands of Haitians, black Haitians, in that country. This man did not care less about that. When finally they got him out of the country, he flew with a French escort. France provided him an escort to go back to France and live in luxury. That man, he did so much damage to Haiti, and yet Haiti allowed this man back into the country. He was not arrested. He was in fact greeted, which I thought was so ridiculous. This guy basically pillaged the country, murdered several thousand citizens through his various death squads and police forces, and was welcomed back to the country with open arms. But anyway, not to get over, Haiti is another topic. But back to just Africa. It has everything to do with the people, folks. Black people. We ought to be, and here in the United States, because we live here in the United States and we've seen better, we know better. We ought to be embarrassed and ashamed by our inability to govern ourselves throughout the world. Black Africans ought to be embarrassed and ashamed on all levels. Not just Nigeria, not just Ghana, not just Congo. But folks, we all ought to be embarrassed and ashamed. Why are these countries so dysfunctional? It has everything to do with the people there. It has everything to do with the leaders. And folks, I would say this. I mean, I would ask you this question. Do black people have the ability to properly govern themselves or ourselves? Do we have the ability to govern? Do we have the integrity? Do we have the accountability to govern ourselves? It makes no sense that in a country that has millions of acres of land to grow food on, you having to beg foreign entities for food, to ship in food, because the country is so dysfunctional and so backwards and so disorganized to where you can't even set aside cropland for food. You have a lot of black African governments who, in fact, they will kick people, black Africans, out of the land to make way for foreign countries to come in. Recently, Saudi Arabia has bought vast swaths of land in several of these African countries. And these African countries what these governments have done in response to that was kick the native people off the land, the native black Africans, to make way for example, Saudi Arabians to come in and grow food and then ship it out to their people back in Saudi Arabia to consume and to sell. Folks, how backwards can you get starved? We've all seen the photos of people starving in Ethiopia, Congo. They walk around barefoot. There's no clean water. They barely have any food to eat. But yet these leaders have set aside, they've kicked the people off of the land and then sold it to foreign countries to come in and grow food on and then ship it back to their countries. Folks, what do you call that? What do you call that? Okay, you know what I call it? I call that gross stupidity. That is gross stupidity. That is that shows a lack of respect, period, for the people, for the culture, for the government. I guess, folks, this goes, I mean, the same really, I mean, it's been operating the same in Africa since slavery in the 1600s, when white countries all throughout Europe came to Africa for slavery. The black African leaders, whether you like it or not, black Africans are the principal ones who went out and captured other blacks and sold them into the slave trade. Yes, indeed. They had no respect for the people and the culture back then, and they have no respect for the people and the culture now. Okay? You've given millions of acres of fertile land to foreign countries so that they can grow their own food and then ship it out of Africa into their countries, into Saudi Arabia, into Philippines or what have you. I mean, folks, this is ridiculous. And I don't know what this is about, folks, but I don't think black people, and I hate to say this. I hate to say this because, black people here in America, at least just from direct experience, have there's a lot of self-hatred amongst blacks, and this phenomenon is implanted in black Africans all around the world. These black governments, they have a contempt and a hatred for the black people they serve. They have no respect for them. And you see that in a lot of blacks in the United States. They have a self-hatred toward each other. They don't respect each other. But however, they do respect foreigners. They respect white people or other groups outside of their own. Okay, this is the number one reason why black people are in the toilet. Black people are in the lowest of low. They are the poorest people around the world. They have the most dysfunctional governments in the world. They have the lowest quality of life in the world. Folks, we hear about the recent droughts in Africa. Do you not realize in Congo and Ethiopia, these people are roaming around eating dirt like migrant cattle? They eat dirt to fill their stomachs up. You had photos of the drought near Congo. Yes, they are walking around barefoot eating dirt. Okay? I mean, and these African countries, they receive billions of dollars from these foreign countries. And even then, the foreign countries are still, they are paying these black African governments pennies on the dollar for their oil and their natural resources. They're not even paying them nowhere near market value. But these stupid, incompetent black African leaders don't care about that. So long as he can get his $1 billion or $2 billion and buy him some land and property and Mercedes-Benz. They love the Mercedes-Benz. And I know if we have any African listeners, I know how your governments operate. They love the Mercedes-Benz. Rather than invest that money into educating the people, providing opportunities, to doing research on infrastructure, providing roads, electricity, running water, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay? Most look at the infrastructure in black African countries. It's dirt roads. It's garbage. Why is that so, folks? And why has there not been a call to action? Because we ought to be embarrassed and ashamed by this. We have real problems with this, folks, as a people. Why are we so dysfunctional? How on earth is it that we have so failed the black African children? The only thing they can look forward to in most of these countries is corruption. You know, the only thing I can do is find me a way to get into the government so I can get me some corruption money. You know, so the foreign companies can pay me a bribe and I can have me a Mercedes-Benz in a big house. Okay? There's no health care in Africa. You know, folks, look at Cuba. Cuba is able to export doctors around the world. Cuba is an island, ladies and gentlemen. It is an island. Cuba, for the most part, provides electricity and running water. How is it that Cuba, an island country, can export doctors around the world, yet most black African countries can't even provide food and water? These massive countries can't even provide food and water, but yet Cuba is an island. And Cuba is able to export doctors around the world. Cuba has exported doctors to Haiti. They exported hundreds of doctors to Haiti after the earthquake situation. Do we see black Africans exporting anything the world can use or anything the world can needs? Does any black African country manufacture and or produce anything? No. They don't manufacture anything. They don't do anything. The only economy that black African countries, for the most part, has is import-export. They import food and water, basic necessities, and at the same time, they export their natural, extremely valuable natural resources. That's it. They're not manufacturing anything. They're not creating anything. They're not building anything. They're certainly not providing their people with opportunities. They're not training their people. They're not educating their people. They're doing nothing. A whole lot of nothing is what these black African countries are doing, folks. And we ought to be ashamed. We ought to be embarrassed by this. I don't understand it. I mean, this is a tragedy on so many levels, folks. HIV/AIDS in Africa. You know, African doctors or whatnot, they've, no innovation. They've created none of the medicines to help the disease, to fight the disease. The people, they have to purchase medication from foreign countries that they can't afford largely. And the black governments, the black African governments, that's no big deal for them. Because those black African governments, most of them get their health care in Europe. Most black African leaders, nearly all of them, they don't get any health care in their own countries. They go to Europe. They go to the UK. They go to Spain. They go to France. They go to, various countries to get health care. Does that make any sense? When you get sick, you have to go to a foreign country. You know why, folks? Because they have no respect for the people. They fear and despise their own people. That's why they go overseas for health care. Or they ship in foreign doctors. Okay? You have black African children walking around, it's really, really sad, covered in flies, begging for food. This is a tragedy on so many levels, and nobody wants to talk, straight talk about it. I hear black people here in the United States talking about, oh, we need to go to the motherland. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with it, okay, folks? We need honest talk on Africa and black people around the world. Folks, the last place I would ever want to be or ever want to live in is any one of these black African countries. I would never want to go there. I most certainly live there. I would visit very briefly, but I sure as hell will not live there. One of my best friends from Africa tells me that the passport, the American passport, you be very careful, folks, when you travel to Africa. They particularly in Nigeria, those passports are very valuable. They will try to steal your passport. They will sell it. An American passport in Nigeria on the black market, I'm told, can sell from anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000 US. Okay, so when you go there, be very wary and make sure they do not go anywhere with your passport, because you'll never see it again. But folks, this is the real tragedy. Black people, are we capable of governing ourselves? Why are our countries so dysfunctional? Haiti, Jamaica, Tanzania, Leone, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Chad, Congo. I could go on and on and on, folks. I mean, this is a one-part series, but I want to talk to people. I want to ask you if we have any African, Black African members in the listening audience. We want to hear from you. Folks, don't forget to chime in with your comments at our website, blackchatradio.blogspot.com. That's blackchatradio.blogspot.com. But folks, ideally, and I'll say this very quickly, Black Africa ought to be the place for job opportunities for blacks, not only in Africa, but in America. I see great opportunity there. Had the leaders and the governments been intelligent, been a smart people, instead of begging people who literally despise you and loathe you, why would you not try to attract foreign, for example, black folk who do have the expertise in engineering, in industrial engineering, in civil engineering, to where they can possibly build water systems, electricity systems. I mean, I don't care. It may start out very simple, but at least you have the foundations of building something, versus begging and begging and begging. Begging. Let me please, white people, can you give us, we can't do anything for ourselves. Please help us because we are too dumb. We are too stupid. We lack the integrity. We lack the vision. We lack the will to do for ourselves and build for ourselves. Okay? Folks, this is a tragedy on so many levels, and I think it's the real issue with this is that the children, the Black African children, have been failed. They have been failed by their parents. They've been failed by their governments. The future looks very bleak for Black Africa. It really, really does. Between HIV/AIDS, between the Black African governments who have no respect for Black African people, to foreign countries who are eating up all of the land and shipping out the food to their countries, there'll be no more food. Black Africans, between the pollution, etc., they won't have any clean drinking water or food to eat. I guess they'll just die. I guess what they'll do like they were doing over there in Congo, eating dirt. They have a drought, and because there's no irrigation, there's no technology there. They don't research. They don't ask questions. The Black African countries, they just eat dirt. And not only that, but eating dirt, folks. I mean, and I'm not making light of this, but eating dirt will actually dehydrate you even further. It dries the body out. Okay, it dries the body out. I mean, I don't know, but I guess that level of desperation is where they are. But anyway, folks, that is it for today's brief show. I know it's very brief. This will be a multi-part series, but I wanted to kick it off by asking the questions. I also, in the future episodes of the series, we will get into Black African leaders who have tried to turn Africa in the right direction. Thomas Sankara, he's a great leader who was assassinated by guess who? Other blacks, his own black cabinet who had him killed, who murdered him and chopped his body up. He was trying to turn his country around. Thomas Sankara. But anyway, folks, I want to discuss some of those Black African leaders who have tried to turn Africa around. I want to talk about, how white European countries have done everything they could to keep Black Africa primitive and backwater. But at the same time, folks, I say that, but they do it through Black Africans. Okay? They do it through Black Africans. These white countries, we all know. Europe, I think, is largely dependent on Black Africa for so much. And yet they want those countries corrupt. They want those countries backwater. They want those countries dysfunctional because, of course, it's easier to pillage and get what you need. And these Black African governments do not care less about the people they serve. They do, however, care much about the white countries and white people who bring them corruption, money, and bribes so that they can live the lavish lifestyles they so choose. It's a tragedy, folks, on so many levels. But anyway, I am your host, Joe Jimmy, folks. We want to hear from you. Leave your comments on our website, blackchatradio.blogspot.com. Feel free to chime in with your comments. We love to hear from you. We want your comments, folks. Why are black African countries so dysfunctional? This is a part of our internal bleeding series. This is our internal bleeding series. Why are black African countries around the world so dysfunctional? And this is with a focus on Nigeria and Africa. But anyway, folks, this is your host, Joe Jimmy. Thank you for listening to Black Chat Radio. We want to thank all the listeners and look forward to this series. This is a one-part series that we will certainly be expanding on in the future. And this is your host, Joe Jimmy. Have a good day.